What's up, hungry people? It's Sava, and I'm here to show you how to make the easiest bread ever today. This recipe is based on the New York Times recipe by Bittman for No-Knead bread with my own little tips and tricks. I know a lot of people started baking bread during quarantine. I was one of those until I realized what the bread was doing to my waistline, and then I kind of stopped baking bread. But we're back, it's getting cold, and I think this is the perfect time to revive this recipe. It's so simple. The most important ingredient here is thyme, and it will turn out beautifully. Having this bread warm in the morning, schmeared, I guess in New York it's schmeared with some butter. Oh my God, it is incredible. Let me show you how to make no-knead bread. If you've never weighed anything before, you're gonna need a scale, and make sure you tare before every ingredient. All right, so like I said, once your bowl is on there, tare your scale. We're measuring in grams, so we're gonna do 450 grams of flour. Tare your bowl again. We're doing 9 grams of salt. I like to do a teaspoon of yeast, tare again, and 315 grams of water. Make sure you go slow with this because you can't take water out. Perfect. Now we mix. It should look pretty shaggy like this. Now I'm gonna scrape down this spoon and cover it either with a lid or saran wrap and just let this sit here overnight. Good morning, so it's morning here and my dough has been sitting overnight. You can see how much it's risen. And it smells so yeasty and delicious. I'm ready to eat it now, but we have a couple more things to do before we actually bake it and eat it. So let me show you how to do it. So onto this surface here, I have sprinkled a little bit of flour. And what we're gonna do is just fold our dough a couple times. Our dough, I'm just gonna use my fingers here. You can see how sticky that is there. And now I'm just gonna lightly flour my hands and fold this through a couple times just to get some more flour worked into it. Not even kneading, just making sure that it is floured. So you can see, not sticky anymore. I am going to let that sit for about 15 minutes. And you know what, I'm just gonna put this over it to make sure it's undisturbed. So our dough has been sitting for about 15 minutes. And now what we're gonna do is just shape the dough into a little bit more of a ball. You can see it's sticky again. I'm just gonna use the rest of this flour here. And what I'm doing is just kind of pulling the edges into the center and just kind of pushing them in so that they stay, like so. You can see that's a nice little ball. And here I have some parchment paper lined with a little bit of cornmeal, and I have it on a baking tray just so it's easier to move. I'm going to take this ball of dough and place it seam side down onto this cookie tray. The cornmeal is gonna give this bread a little bit of texture and make it so it doesn't stick, and I'm just going to lightly sprinkle the top with a little bit more cornmeal and then put another piece of parchment paper over it. So this is gonna rise for about 2 hours until it's doubled in size. So I still have about half an hour for my dough to rise, but what I'm gonna do now is put my Dutch oven, and no, it's not Le Creuset, into the oven so that it can start to heat up and preheat so that it's hot when we put the bread in there. It'll just give that bread the initial rise that it needs to form a nice crust. So this is gonna go into the oven for 30 minutes and then we'll be putting our bread into the hot pot. My dough's been rising for about 2 hours now, and you can see how much bigger it's gotten. What I'm gonna do here is brush off this excess cornmeal because we don't want it going into our pan because it will burn when this bakes. And you can see when I press it, it bounces right back. That is a good sign. And now that most of it is brushed off, I'm gonna take that piece of parchment paper that I had on it before and just kind of use it to flip the entire loaf over. So this is actually gonna be the bottom of the loaf and the part underneath is gonna be the top. So use this, kind of take my fingers, pick it up, and do a quick flip. Like that. This, I'm gonna move out of the way so that I can get my pot out of the oven. I'm gonna take my dough and with the parchment paper still on the bottom, just put it right in there. The lid goes on top. So I just put the pot back in the oven for 30 minutes with the lid on. Then I'll take the lid off and cook it for another probably 15 to 20 minutes so that it gets really nice and beautifully browned. I'll show you it when we're there. Look at this beautiful loaf of bread that's still a little bit hot. You can see the bottom. Can you hear that? It sounds really hollow. The bottom is lightly golden brown. The top looks incredible. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this even though it is not totally cool. Really nice and crusty. Look at that. Still hot. Beautiful. So a couple hours later, here we are. Look at this beautiful bread. I have a piece that I buttered up here. Since we took the time to make homemade bread, I'm gonna treat myself and really put some butter on here. It's still warm. I know you're not supposed to cut bread while it's warm, but holy moly, I could not wait. Wow. You hear that crunch? Wow. The outside, the crust is so light but crunchy. The bottom crust is a little bit thicker. It's so fluffy and tender and chewy. I don't know if you can see that, but it's so chewy, it's so delicious. You can fold in all sorts of ingredients from dried herbs, like rosemary would be delicious, or I've also kneaded in things like olives. This bread is so delicious. As I said earlier, you do need some time, but I think it's totally worth the wait. So delicious. I hope you try this at home. As always, the recipe is gonna be in the description box below. Thanks for cooking with me again. Let me go eat this.